Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, an intuitive leadership coach and somatic guide for high performers, high achievers who want more freedom, ease, joy, and energy. You are a visionary leader, driven, intuitive, and ready for more. More flow in your work, more presence and joy in your life and relationships, more trust in yourself and the decisions you make every day. Here, we explore the intersection of intuition, leadership, and energetic sovereignty, blending practical strategy with energetic alignment so you can create success that feels deeply fulfilling at work, at home, in your relationships, and in your own well-being. You'll hear inspiring stories, practical strategies, and high-level conversations designed to help you integrate the woo into your daily life. Because when your energy is aligned, everything flows. Ready to elevate how you lead and live? Start by downloading my free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit and discover what's fueling or depleting you. Let's do this. Your yes-filled life starts now. Hello and welcome back to Your Yes-Filled Life. If you've been a listener before, I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm very happy to have you here. So today on the podcast, we're going to be diving into this question, which maybe you've never asked yourself before. Maybe you have. Is this mine or theirs? What if that heaviness that you're carrying, those negative emotions, that guilt, that shame, what if it's not actually yours? So I'm going to share some real world signs of unmanaged empathy, signs that you might be taking on things that aren't yours. I'm going to show you how you can start to discern your energy from other people's. I'll give you a really quick somatic practice and breath work that you can use, and I'll even guide you into next steps should you choose to take them. So, a lot of times when we hear the word empathy, we think about in terms of people that don't have empathy. Let's clear this up right now. I know that you have tremendous empathy, or you wouldn't be attracted to this show. So, when I'm talking about empathy management, or could there be too much empathy, I'm not talking about, let's say, the leaders in the US government. It would be really nice for them to have more empathy. They're not my audience. And empathy would be really helpful for them. A lot of the situations that have developed over the world would not be here if it were empathy. In a lot of the situations around the world wouldn't be the situations that we are currently witnessing if leadership had more empathy. So I'm not making empathy a bad thing at all. It's a really good thing, which is why it's so important for you, the person with deep empathy and deep compassion, to learn how to manage your empathy so that you can show up more fully in the world, to share your gifts, to share your contributions. So when we talk about real world signs of unmanaged empathy, it might look like you go to a meeting, you're feeling fine, you're feeling pretty good, in fact, and then you get done with the meeting and you are exhausted. Like, might have to go take a nap exhausted. Another form of unmanaged empathy would be if you feel like you have to solve everyone else's problem. And maybe people call you and they dump on you. They tell you all of their problems, like the day by day nitty gritty stuff of every process that they're in some difficult life situation. That could be a sign of unmanaged empathy. Other signs of unmanaged empathy are feeling like you can't make a decision. It's almost like brain fog, but it's even foggier than brain fog. It's like where you have these ideas and you have clarity on what you want to share. You sit down to create whatever it was you wanted to share, whether it's something in writing or a text you wanted to send, and all of a sudden it's like you cannot remember. Now, it could be argued maybe that's your ADHD acting up, but maybe you don't have ADHD and you wonder, why is this happening to me? That is actually a sign of unmanaged empathy. When you are very emotional and you feel like your emotions are stronger than the situation actually warrants, that could be a sign of unmanaged empathy. And I'll give you examples of each of these so we can make it more tangible. I love to give you really tangible, nitty-gritty things to land these kinds of concepts. So, one of the things that I hear a lot from my clients when we dive into how they would have identified before they understood they were empaths, they would say things like, I know that I have a higher level of emotional intelligence than most of the people in my family. And the people in my family rely on me to keep the peace. The people in my family rely on me to understand everyone else's emotions. And they might even go back and forth between you. Like, let's say one person comes to tell you about how they're feeling in hopes that you will take that back to the other person and translate it for them. Now, there's some gray area here that I want to be really transparent about. Some of these behaviors are also behaviors that merge into codependency and into boundary disorders or boundary problems. What I'm talking about here in unmanaged empathy is not the same, and here's why. If this was an issue that you were dealing with as far as codependency that you might be working through in therapy, it would be the case across all relationships. It would be in every single one of your relationship. If it's unmanaged empathy, you have relationships where this isn't a problem. You have friend groups or colleague groups where these issues don't come up and the energy is clean. So if you're noticing that 100% of your relationships have these kinds of imbalances where people are coming to you to tell you how they feel in hopes that you translate it to someone else, that's called triangulation. And that would be something that I would invite you to work through in therapy so that we could stop that kind of codependent behavior. If it's not codependency, it means that you have relationships that this doesn't happen. It's clean. So even if you have one relationship where this is clean, I'm going to point you toward empathy management because that's really what we're here talking about today. Let me give you an example of what it might be like to have unmanaged empathy in a real world example. Let's say your grown son comes home for a visit. You're so excited to see him. You're very excited to spend time with him. And next thing you know, you have taken on all of the roles that you used to have when your son was little. And you find yourself picking up the house after him. You find yourself fixing meals for him, doing his laundry, and you're resenting it, but you cannot seem to stop. It could be an empathy management problem because he's bringing you back into the energetic configuration from when he was little because he loved being cared for by you. That's one example. Let's take this into your career. Unmanaged empathy can show up if you are the one that everyone goes to for all of their problems. If you find that people come to you and they want your assistance in working through the daily minutia of their divorce or of their daughter's diagnosis or their husband's whatever, that could actually be a sign of unmanaged empathy. And I'll talk to you in this episode about some things that you can start to do to manage that empathy. Because the truth is, you're not helping people the way that you think you're helping people when you let them dump all over you. We tell ourselves as empaths, this is how I'm helping. I'm giving them a space for this. I can absorb this. I know I'm strong enough. But the thing that you're not accounting for is it's impacting your energy. It's impacting how well you can show up and share your divine gifts. And so the thing that I would remind you is there are therapists out there who can talk to people about their daily things. It's not helpful for you to take on these roles, no matter whether they're a family member, a friend, or a coworker. Because the truth is, even if you are a therapist or a coach or a healer or a doctor, unless you're holding space in a session, meaning you've protected your energy, you're holding space very mindfully, then it's not actually a session, which means that you're being expected to hold space for someone in a way that may not be healthy for you or for them. Because if they're not being held in a space like a container, like a therapy session, a somatic coaching session. They're just venting. And that's not helpful for either one of you. And here's why. There's a myth in culture that venting is helpful, that all you need to do is release it, talk about it, and you'll feel better. That's not actually true. What is true is that if you talk about the things that are bugging you, you'll see more of those in your life in very short time because wherever attention goes, energy flows. You have this set of neurons inside your brain called a reticular activating system. This set of neurons has one job, and it is to filter out unnecessary information. So, if you're completely focused on all the bad things that happen, whether they're in your life or your sister's, your reticular activating system begins to search and seek other bad things to happen. So if you've ever complained about something and then things got worse, this is what is happening. So from a brain neuroscience standpoint, we have activated the reticular activating system. From an energetic, metaphysical component, what's happened is you've activated the law of attraction in a direction you may not want it to. So what do you need to do? Well, you're going to pull back your attention from the things you don't want and instead focus your attention on the things that you do. Now, before we get too much further, the first thing someone's going to say is, well, are you talking about manifesting? Yes, and also no. I'm talking about how to simply feel better and absorb less emotion and energy that's not yours. I do talk about manifesting, and one thing I'll say right now, it is very important for you to maintain a focus on what you want to bring in for your manifestations. And also, it's essential for you to also take action. It's not enough for you to sit on your meditation pillow. You also have to take that inspired action, that idea that came to you after the meditation, if we're talking about manifestation. But today, we're really talking about how do we manage your empathy. So let's get back to that. Another way that unmanaged empathy shows up is if you notice you have resentment in your life, you might have unmanaged empathy. Let me lay out a scenario for you. Okay, let's talk about another way that unmanaged empathy can show up in your life. Let's say that you have a partnership, a romantic partner, and you know that your partner really enjoys doing specific activities. Let's say, just for the sake of this story, your partner loves to go golf. You both come home at the same time. You've both worked a long day. You both have parental duties. Your partner says to you, I really want to go golf. And instead of thinking to yourself, gosh, I also want to go golf, or maybe you want to go crochet, or maybe you want to go to yoga, or maybe you want to go to tennis, or maybe you want to go sit in the pool. Instead of saying any of those things, you think to yourself, oh, my partner really deserves to go relax. So you say, oh, that's great. Go golf, have a good time. And then you secretly resent, or maybe not so secretly. That's an example of unmanaged empathy where your empathy for the partner actually overrode your own desires, where it sort of made it impossible for you to say, I know you'd like to golf, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we might be able to figure out a win-win situation where you can go golf and I can go do my yoga or whatever it is. That would be an appropriate response with managed empathy. Okay. So here's something that I shared a reel on Instagram, and I have this little clear, like science dish. It's got seal shavings in it and it has a magnet. If we imagine other people's energy and emotion as the steel shavings, and we imagine you as the magnet, if you are an empath, you will notice that you have a tendency to attract a lot of steel shavings, the steel shavings being the energy and emotions. The more you are around people, the more steel shavings you absorb until before you know it, you are carrying most of the steel shavings. And then, as a stress response, or maybe even a trauma response, you continue to stay in motion. You continue to do the same thing because you're telling yourself, oh, I need to help. So you try and do more and more and more and more until you're carrying the entire load. And then you're so filled with resentment and you're so exhausted and depleted that one of two things happens. You either get very sick or you pick a fight. Maybe you go off like a volcano, or maybe it's just passive aggressive. Resentment is actually a cue that there's something you're not asking for. There's something you're not being true to yourself about. There's something you're not admitting. When we resent, we are setting the stage for a rupture in our relationships. It's very important for us to be as truthful as we can be, including saying, I also want to go have fun, or I also am really tired, or I also want to go do that thing. Instead of being so empathic that we let the people in our lives do the things that they want to do. So, how do you begin to discern where's your energy? Where are your emotions? What are they? And what are the people in your lives' emotions so that you can begin to create a little bit of spaciousness and you can think to yourself, oh, I get it. My partner wants to go golfing, but I want to also go do this thing. How can I articulate that? Because the truth is, one of the reasons you haven't articulated it is you probably don't know how, because it feels so confusing. In that moment when your partner says, I want to go golfing, you feel your partner's desire to go golfing and you mistake their excitement in the potential of going golfing as your own excitement right up until the time they walk out the door, right? How many times has that happened to you? If that's happened to you, put your hand up. I mean, I can't see it, but my hand is for sure up because this is something I used to do all the time until I realized, oh, I need to manage my empathy so that I can really distinguish what is my desire. How can I articulate my desire and then communicate that? That's our goal, is to be able to communicate those desires in all of our relationships, whether they're professional relationships, maybe with clients or coworkers or your boss. How can you communicate your desires in your personal relationships, whether it's with your children or your partners or your friends? Because I tell you what is magnetic is you being your full, radiant, authentic self. So I know that it can feel a little bit scary to start doing this work. I definitely was scared when I began doing this work because I had a lot of fear. I wondered if I would lose people. And the truth is, I have lost people, and you might as well. And also, sometimes they come back. And the ones that haven't come back, I trust it's because they were taking more than they were giving. So, how do you start to discern your energy? Well, I'm going to teach you what's called the zip up method. The zip up method is where you're going to start this base of your spine and you're going to zip your energy up in front of your face over the back of your head. And you're going to do this 3 times, zipping, 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 zipping up over the back of your head. One more time, zipping, 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 zipping up over the top of your head. What we're doing here is we are plugging any leaks in your energetic field. We know from science that you have a magnetic field around you. In spiritual communities, we call this your aura or your auric field. You can have little holes, little leaks in your auric field. And when you zip up, because we live in a universe of intention, you're intending to close any of the gaps in that auric field. You're calling back your own energy. You're giving back their energy to them. And that in itself is an absolute game changer. So with this, you're creating a little bit of spaciousness for yourself to be able to feel, is this mine? Is this theirs? So that's step one. You're going to zip up your energy, zip up your auric field. It will be a game changer for you. I've talked about this on the podcast before, so maybe you've heard this before if you've been with me for a while. I cannot tell you how important it is to get this. This is essential. This is where it all starts. This is not coming from a fear-based place. This is not coming from a place of like protecting your energy, although it sort of does protect your energy. It's coming from a place of let's strengthen your energetic sovereignty. Let's strengthen your spaciousness. Let's strengthen your capacity to know what's yours and what's theirs so you can make aligned decisions and communicate clearly. So, the zip up method is something I really want you to remember like forever and ever and ever. And it's so simple, you can teach it to your kids. If you've got even little kids, even preschoolers can figure this out, and it'll make a tremendous difference in their lives. If you've been into a school lately, you know there's a lot of energy there from all of the students to all of the teachers to everything that's going on. And if you teach your children the zip up method, especially as we get ready to go to back to school time, this will be really, really game changing for them. One of my clients, her name is Kendra. I've talked about her before on the podcast, and maybe you've even heard her on one of the recent episodes. She has a daughter who is in the last few years of high school. And when Kendra started working with me, I taught her the zip up method. She instantly thought, I think that my daughter would like this. It was so influential for her daughter that her daughter's world really changed in the sense that she felt more confident. She felt more grounded. She felt less reactive. And that is such a beautiful way to feel no matter what age you are. So the next thing I'm going to teach you is a way to really strengthen what I call your central channel. Sometimes we call the central channel your chakra system. Sometimes we call it the spinal cord. We're talking about the energy centers in your body that balance out all of your systems. So you're going to make sure that your spine is straight. You can be seated, or you can be standing. It doesn't really matter. And you're going to take a deep breath in through the nose and blow out through the mouth. In just a moment, we'll take about 10 of those together. But let me show you something, or I'll describe it for you if you're just listening. You're going to put 2 thumbs up out in front of you. Then turn your hands so that those thumbs are going down. So now the backs of your hands are facing one another. Then you'll open your hands so that they're flat. Cross your hands over each other so that the palms are now facing each other. Intertwine your fingers and then bring that up so it's kind of a little twist, and lay that on your heart. It's called a heart hug. So we have our hands kind of twisted up, intertwined over our hearts. This is incredibly calming for your nervous system. It's a way for you to get back into the thinking brain, because anytime we cross your hands, we cross the right and left meridian inside your brain. And when we cross the right and left meridian of your brain, if we stay there long enough, we can bring you out of a stress response, which is in the lower part of the brain, known as the amygdala, or where the brain stem lives. So by staying in this position, you're already bringing yourself out of a stress state. Now, if we add some breath to that, you're going to have tremendous benefits. So let's do that now. Let's take 10 breaths in and out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Here we go. Inhale. Exhale. 9 more. Five more. Two more. And return to your normal breath. You'll notice you probably feel different. You probably feel more relaxed. Maybe you did what's called an involuntary physiological sigh, where you accidentally inhaled twice or three times on one of those. It's your body's way of coming into relaxation. Maybe you felt like you needed to yawn. In any case, we just down regulated your nervous system so that we could bring that vagus nerve back online to begin a calming effect in your body. When you are making decisions from this place, from this calm, aligned, grounded place, communication gets so much easier. So if we are reactive and we're in the moment and we're worried about disappointing somebody, it can really bring on a nervous system response. So coming back to the breath, even if that means you need to go to the bathroom to excuse yourself for a few minutes just to take some breaths, you can do this and it'll make such a difference in how you show up and how you communicate. Now, the things that we've talked about today are they seem small, they seem subtle, and they are. But you know what? It takes a small hinge to swing a big door. And when you put these two things in place, the breath that we just did with the heart hug and the zip up method, you're going to notice tremendous changes. You're going to notice that you have more resilience, that you have a calmer state of being, that it's easier for you to confidently speak your truth. Now, imagine what it would be like for you if you were being held in a container that not only taught you these nervous system tools, but held you through finding your true, authentic voice, finding a way to embrace your empathic gifts without overgiving, without overcommitting, without resentment. That's what we do inside your Yes Filled Life group coaching program. We talk about how to find your authentic voice, whether that means showing up authentically in your relationships or showing up authentically for your business. Finding your voice means that you can share your truth in whatever your chosen medium is, whether that's in writing or in videos or on a podcast, or maybe that means in your business. Finding your authentic voice is the first step in feeling empowered, in finding your yes-filled life. So the feeling of yes, when something goes so well, you know that feeling? Let's do it together. Let's just say yes. Ready on three. One, two, three. Yes. When you have that feeling, that is a yes-filled life. And my goal, my mission, my purpose is to get you to that feeling more of the time because I know that you have something really special to contribute. I know that the world needs you and your deep gifts of empathy and compassion. And if you're overgiving, if you're overcommitting, if you're overextending, you don't have the ability to share your gifts in as meaningful a way. And all you have to do is to watch any one news cycle to realize that we need more empathy in the world. We need leaders like you with deep empathy. Deep empathy is a sign of strength, but we have to learn how to manage it. If it's not managed, it can go sideways on it and we can start to use it to people please. Ask me how I know. That is literally my story. I took a lot of my gifts underground and became a world-class people pleaser at the age of about 7 when I discovered that people were frightened of my spiritual gifts. And I've told this story as a guest on a lot of other podcasts, but I don't know if I told that story here. I could people please before you even knew you had a problem. And because of my deep gifts of empathy, I could read a room and I could go pick out the least regulated nervous system in the room and make sure that by the time that I left the room, they were feeling better. Now, it wasn't completely altruistic. It was actually a way for me to feel safe. At the time, when I was like 6 or 7, I was enduring abuse by a trusted family member. And so feeling safe was my number one priority because so much of the time I did not feel safe. So I felt safe in every room I could by people pleasing. And that lasted up until I was about 35 years old. And when I was 35, that was when I left a marriage that was no longer serving me and I began this healing journey. And that was back in 2007. It took me 8 years to get to the point where I was healed enough that I could begin offering healing to others. And so I became a Reiki master in 2014, 2015, studied theta healing meditation technique shortly thereafter, became certified in 2016, and continued that journey for many years up until 2022, when I left my full time teaching job, a career where I was 7 years away from retirement, because I knew I had to live into my life purpose. I knew I had to share these gifts of intuition and empathy so that I could lead to your empowerment. And that's when I decided to become a trauma informed breath facilitator and trauma informed somatic coach. That all happened in 2022. And it's almost 3 years to the day that I left teaching to run this business full time. It's been up, it's been down, it's been the biggest personal development course I ever signed up for without even realizing that was what I was signing up for. But I'm so grateful for it and for you for being along the journey with me. Now, if you want to continue to listen to the podcast, that's wonderful. I promise to bring you really engaging, helpful content that can get you to your yes filled life. And if you want to go further, farther, faster with me inside your yes filled life group coaching, well, this is your invitation. We're enrolling now for the September cohort, and you can learn more by going to brendawinkle.com/your yes filled life, all lowercase, all one word. So, in closing, I have a little bit of homework for you between now and the next episode. It's not really homework, but I think you'll enjoy it. I invite you to spend 5 minutes at least every day finding things that you appreciate, finding things that bring you joy, and then sharing them with people you care about. If you want to tag me on your social media with your joy picture or your appreciation picture, I would absolutely love that. And I really want to know, what are you doing to cultivate and curate and nurture joy and appreciation to find your yes-filled life? Thank you so much for listening. Would you please go leave the podcast a rating and review wherever you're listening? I know it seems like I ask every time, because I do, but it is truly one of the most helpful things you can do to help a podcast grow. Your just quick 30 seconds will make such a difference. I'd be so grateful. Thank you for being along with the journey. Thank you for listening. Until next time, bye for now.